Greetings and salutations, everybody. It's Dave Duford here at Final Expense Agent Mentor, where I help agents like you succeed in selling life insurance. And today I've got a fantastic interview. On the line, I have my agent, Jeremy, and another agent that works with me named Steve. And today we're going to be talking about how to sell annuities, of all things, to your final expense leads, and how really there is a huge well of opportunity that is sitting in your final expense leads, the same old ones you're working, the same old ones I'm working. And we're going to teach you the process in which we taught Jeremy to go find 6 figures worth inside of several weeks worth of annuity business that, had he not known the knowledge that he does now, wouldn't have been able to produce. So kind of to give you the format today on today's training, really just going to be kind of a question interview type of format where I'm going to ask Jeremy to share his experience with us on how he was able to do this and kind of walk you through that process of the entirety from point A to point Z, where Jeremy came up with this prospect, and then how Steve was able to jump in and help him out to get him trained up to competently sell this and make a very nice commission. So first, before we get started, let me introduce to you first Jeremy. Jeremy, if you want to just say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Jeremy. I live in Wisconsin here. Got a family, 3 kids.
Jeremy's a pretty relatively new agent. I mean, you've been working with me for about 4, 5, 6 months, but probably less than a year or so since you first started selling final expense, correct?
Less than a year since I've actually started selling insurance.
Right. Yeah. Just insurance in general. Yeah. So great. So let me bring in Steve here. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little more about what you do?
Well, thank you, David. My name's Stephen Burgess, and I've been working in the insurance industry for about 5 years. Before that, I was in education. I have a master's in early childhood education. So a lot of the things that I brought to the table working with Jeremy were the ability to teach and to motivate. So I found this whole process very exciting. I work with David because most of the stuff that I do with annuity is what I focus on. I just don't have time for the product knowledge and final expense. So I call David up, he fixes my problems, and that's how we started working together. And he mentioned that he had an agent that had an issue, and I asked if I could help, and boy, did that work out great.
So awesome, guys. Thank you too so much for being on the call today. I think we're going to learn a ton of information that will be extremely useful to all sorts of final expense agents that maybe have an interest in figuring out other alternative ways or just additional ways really to sell more business to their existing leads without incurring more of a cost to acquire that lead. So let's just jump right in. So this whole thing came about when Jeremy was working leads, doing really good selling final expense, and then he had this opportunity really just kind of fall in his lap. And let's kind of take it from there. So Jeremy, if you could kind of jump in and just kind of tell us and walk us through the process of how you came across this first final expense lead that had this annuity opportunity.
Well, I actually met with a lady off of a direct mail lead, and obviously going in there with the intent of actually selling our final expense product. She already has a final expense product that actually was taking care of all of her needs. She was just making sure that that was actually a good product. And so really there was no benefit for me actually for a final expense product. And I kind of mentioned to her that, is there anything else that you'd like me to take a look at? And, she had mentioned an insurance policy for her husband that she wanted me to take a look at also. And while looking for that one, she pulled out these annuities as well. And she said, I don't know what these are, and I don't know how these work. Can you actually help me with these? Obviously, she just kind of brought them and set them right in my lap. And I told her, sure, I'll take a look at it and see what I can do for you. So that was kind of the experience of literally having an annuity dropped right in my lap. And now I got to figure out how to do it, how to take care of it.
Right. So it was really it was one question. What else you got going on with your insurance? And she just kind of spur of the moment said, hey, funny you mentioned that, and then brought this annuity idea she had or product she already had, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And what was great is at this time, you called me And, my knowledge is specifically in final expense, but I know enough agents all around that work with me. And this was a perfect opportunity based off a conversation I was having with Steven, discussing what he does on a weekly basis, writing this kind of business. And this is when I put you two guys in touch, and where you two guys started working on it. So Steve, what I was going to get from your opinion is, at this point, what did you do to kind of help Jeremy out with this process of figuring out what it is that he was looking at and how he could actually help the client?
Well, the first thing that I liked about Jeremy is he's smart enough to be looking around. I call it the Lighthouse Effect. And when I go into a house, I go in really on a cold call. I'm dealing with seniors. I work with people between the ages of 63 and 75. And I'm looking at all aspects of their lives. So I'm looking through medical. I'm looking what their health is, long-term care plans, life insurance plans, what their financial situation is. Do they have wills, trusts? That's the way I find annuities, is by helping in all different areas that we can work. And in Jeremy's situation, he was looking around. He was asking questions. Is there anything I can be helpful with? And when you ask those questions, that's when they land in your lap. So it didn't just happen to Jeremy. He asked and offered, can I be of assistance to you?
Right.
And yes, you can.
Perfect. So back to you, Jeremy. So, I keyed you two together, and I just said, you guys work this out. You're talking to the guy with the knowledge base of annuities. He's going to be able to identify what this is that you have and if there's something better you can do. So what I was hoping to kind of get from you, Jeremy, what was the process in working with Steven? Was it that you were getting more of like an education prior to selling this, or was this training or this education really directly involved with the process of selling? I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, what was the process of working with Steve to get this thing up and running, to actually being able to offer what accounted to be, how much was the annuity deal again?
It was right about, it was a little over six figures. So
yeah,
about 120,000. So
yeah, so it was a 6-figure deal. So what was that process in working with Steve to get that 6-figure annuity, from understanding what you had to understanding what you could do better, and just that overall experience with Steve?
Well, obviously, after Steve and I had talked and over the phone, kind of mentioned to him exactly what I have. Obviously, talking about certain things that I was looking for as far as helping this lady and how we can actually, essentially increase her money more than what she's got right now currently. Most of it was an education on my end of how the annuity products work, how they function, and really getting me up to speed on talking with this lady in the house about the annuities that she does have and understanding what she does have, and obviously going forward from there and looking at the new product that we can able to offer her, and obviously give her a much better deal and a much better income than what she currently has.
Right. So I think the important point, and I want to bring Steve's perspective in on this. I think, as a trainer myself, I think the best way to learn any kind of insurance product really is through being in the trenches. There's a lot of people that want to know everything about everything before they step the first foot out the door. And what you find is most of these people never do the first thing because there's this level of fear that they're going to mess something up, or there's this level of concern that really is just unwarranted. And so what I wanted to do to bring Steve in is kind of describe what he feels is the best way to learn how to sell annuities, because I think part of this process with Jeremy was how we really like to do it. So Steve, if you could kind of describe to us your preferred approach, or what you think is the ideal method to teach the sale of annuities to a final expense agent, or any agent in particular.
The first key here with Jeremy is he had the enthusiasm. He found something. And the first time I talked with Jeremy, we talked about not only this particular case, but some other cases that he had looked into. And as an annuity fella, and I know how hard it is to find these products and to find a client that's eligible, I was like Pavlov's dog. I was drooling on the side there a little bit. this young man had really found a lot of annuity business in Wisconsin, and I got excited about the opportunity of being able to work with him. I find that if a person is focused, the biggest thing with teaching somebody something, it's a very complicated subject, but if you can narrow it down to this is what we're going to do for this lady, and then just teach to that, it's not that difficult. So the first thing we did is we got the product, we found something that was suitable for her, we looked at what she had, and we narrowed it down so that when Jeremy went in to finally close this deal, he was thoroughly he had presented to her, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah, and I think you're on the same page with me, right? I mean, there's ultimate value in certainly learning for the sake of learning, but with this particular case, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, I would imagine, in any insurance sale, but because we had a live case, somebody who was open-minded to a sale opportunity, your teaching was specific and tailor-made to that particular circumstance. And as anybody who trains agents will tell you, or anybody who gets out there and does things, the best way you learn, really, right, Steve, is when you learn by doing. Wouldn't you agree?
I would have to say jumping in the pool and start to swim. One of my favorite slogans is fake it till you make it. Just go in there with a level. I gave Jeremy enough confidence that when he went in there, he knew what he was talking about. He knew what she had. He knew what we offered her. It was a much better situation for the client to move this money, and the entire process was geared around how do we get him up and running as quickly as possible. I find that too many people have the paralysis of analysis. They sit along the sidelines, jump off the fence, jump into the water, take a swim. I'll walk you through it.
Right, and I think that's critical in the sake of understanding this process is, you know, certainly you're not going to know everything getting started in any new insurance line that you sell, but boy, when you have somebody in your corner, you know, faking it till you make it is a lot easier when you know you can fall back on somebody with, you know, the actual field experience. I'll move on to this next question, Jeremy. So, you know, Steve was working with you. You found a product opportunity. He identified how this particular existing annuity worked and then how to improve upon it for the sake of the client. Tell us, how did you feel when you were ready to sell that annuity? Did you feel prepared? Did you feel like you had a good positioning that you were going to get this deal? Kind of what was your overall thoughts going into this?
Well, obviously working with Steve has been kind of a blessing as far as that goes, because him and I kind of went into a client with a set plan on how we're going to obviously pitch the product. He was actually kind of helped me walk me right through every aspect of what we needed to do to write the annuity. So obviously the paperwork is filled out in its entirety and complete. And it's been definitely an eye opener, and you know, the level of confidence when you walk into that, obviously taking care of the customer at that point in time, selling the annuity, walking out, I mean, essentially with your chest held high and you know you did the right thing for the customer, the client. And you know, Steve has been like I said, a really nice eye opener on, yeah, I mean, I didn't know everything about the annuity at the time that I walked into the place, but when I walked out, I knew a whole lot more, and writing that business in there definitely gives you a level of confidence on where to go from there and what to start looking for.
Right. And I just want to add this in too. I think it's important. You know, we've been mentioning the amount of the annuity, but I'm sure that there are agents who have heard that, yeah, you can make a lot of commission in annuities, but we haven't talked about the actual commission dollars. So if you don't mind, Jeremy, disclosing, what was your commission take home from this first case that you wrote?
It was right around $6,000.
$6,000. And how many calls did that take you to do it? I mean, were you there 5-10 times, or was it a very?
I was there 3 times actually. One, I was there with the final expense at that point in time. The first time I was there. obviously, that's when I told you that this lady had the annuities. I didn't obviously know anything about them, didn't have any numbers or what to look for in the annuity paperwork to find out what I can do as far as a product comparison. So I called her back up, went back in there, actually got all the paperwork from her and told her, yeah, I'll be able to help you with your annuity. After talking with Steve, it shouldn't be a problem. Took her paperwork. Obviously, we did the product comparison, went back and wrote it. So I met her 3 times, probably spent a total of about 4 or 5 hours on this deal.
Yeah, and how much did you spend for that lead?
I spent $33.
Right, $33, and it wasn't even an annuity lead. Just to make sure that's clear, that was completely your standard direct mail final expense lead. And just because Jeremy asked that one simple question, this deal came to him. So I just want to make sure that's clear for people who are watching that. There's no magic here. There's just knowing what questions to ask. Maybe that is the magic after all. But it leads to these huge opportunities, which, as you'll discover here shortly, they're all over the place if you just know what to look for. So kind of building on that, continuing here, that was your first deal. And I got a call from you a day or two ago, and you said you wrote even another deal. You found another annuity deal. So kind of tell us how this annuity deal was different and just kind of discuss the process in closing that.
Well, with the first one, the annuity was obviously set up currently in place. She was out of the surrender period, everything like that. So we just took that money and moved it from the other one. The other one, he's got a financial advising company, which I won't mention. But he's got them taking care of right around $18,000. And he's also got his 401k. Now, I didn't know if I was able to move that money from his 401k, which is what he has through his work. Wasn't able to know if I'd able to move that money. So obviously I contacted Steve again, kind of give him the rundown of what the customer had told me, which was a specific fact that, if the stock market drops, his money in his 401k drops as well. And he wants to protect that the best way that he can. So obviously talking with Steve, we placed him into, actually the same platform of annuity, but it was able to move both accounts over and wrote that one that was $68,000.
That's fantastic. So this a little bit different situation, a few more moving parts. Steve, if you could jump in to kind of get your perspective on this particular deal. Was this more accustomed to what you would find in the field as far as the questions you'd ask or kind of the situation as it stands? I'm just kind of curious to share with the people watching on the video how this deal compared to the first, in your opinion.
Well, the first thing I would like to go back to is the first deal that we did with Jeremy, because when Jeremy walked into that house, I call it the 5 P's of success. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. And what Jeremy and I did was spend a few hours over the phone in front of a computer going through all the documentation. We were even able to actually have the computer type in all the information so that 80% of the paperwork that needed to be done was done before we ever got there. And Jeremy was also able to do a prospectus, and I showed him how to do it and print it out. And even though he wasn't thoroughly, he is now, but at the time wasn't thoroughly understanding what that prospectus was and how to present it, what I did is I very quickly, just very briefly, did a 5-minute presentation on the prospectus. We went right into the application. And because I'm on the computer with him and we kept it organized, we went page by page, line by line, and it went very, very smoothly. So that's what I wanted to say about the first one. The second one, if you work with me, I am an open book. I will rant and rave about financial planners, about 401ks, about how they're the most misunderstood financial instrument available now and how companies use them for their own benefits. And so in the process of just talking with Jeremy and schooling him up on everything he needs to know, again, going back to that Lighthouse Effect, he said, oh, I know I've got something here. So again, I just want to put as many as many opportunities for the agents out there with working with me. It's not just annuity business. That's the easy ones. But there's also 401ks. There's cash value life insurance policies that are close to. There's a lot of different things that you can do annuities with. And working with Jeremy, I was able to share that with him.
Cool. And Jeremy, then if you can jump in here, now you've got 2 under your belt. You obviously have the experience of learning this on an experiential basis. What do you think about your confidence level now? You're going out in the field, you're still selling final expense, but you're obviously asking for annuities. What is your confidence level now when you're working these direct mail leads to ask about annuities? And describe that for us.
Well, my confidence level is obviously kind of through the roof as far as that goes. I mean, getting to the fact of knowing what to look for, knowing what to ask, as far as just kind of getting a little bit more information out of them, essentially just doing a needs analysis for the customer while you're out there, because you're not going in there. I'm not going in there just looking for my final expense sale. I mean, yes, the guy that I wrote the $68,000, he also bought a final expense product from us also.
Right.
So, I mean, not only did I get the $60 sale that I had monthly sale for that one, but I also moved $68,000 worth of his, annuities into an annuity. So, obviously having the confidence that we're looking for is great.
So where do you stand now, Jeremy? Now you've done 2 of these deals. And look, this, guys, just for you guys watching this, you're kind of curious. This has not been more than a month, maybe month and a half process. I might be pushing it. I mean, this isn't some drawn out 6, 12-month process that Jeremy has gotten to. I mean, these deals were there. The learning took place individually on each product. And Jeremy is explaining this based off of a very short period of time. And so what I want to kind of continue here, Jeremy, is asking you, now with your experience, now you know what to ask. What simple, easy questions to ask. What kind of opportunity do you think there is in these final expense leads for these annuity deals?
Well, we go into a lot of houses and that kind of stuff, and you see a lot of, paid up policies. You see a lot of, different aspects of, when you walk into these houses. The guy that I'm actually going to see him again this next week. He's got over about $160,000 of paid up policy. So I'm looking at, obviously, and he wants to protect that money. It's not really growing where it's at. It's not doing anything. So we're actually, what I'm going to be going in there and pitching him is the fact that we're going to be taking a look at that one. And this is, again, just a lead that I had gotten. And actually his was actually a Facebook lead. This wasn't a direct mail lead or anything. It was a Facebook lead that, essentially I paid $20 for.
Wow.
And, and if it turns out to where, you pull out $7,000 or $8,000 out of a house to where you're doing your job and you're getting compensated from the company for that, that's huge. That's a huge percentage increase on what you're paying for that business.
So kind of follow-up question to that, Jeremy, having gone through this process of learning annuities, what kind of advice would you give to the agent who's really intrigued by this, that wants to do this? What do you think, what steps he needs to take to do this the right way?
Well, obviously get a little bit of, education, with Steve, or obviously contacting you and finding out where to go as far as learning the process of what we're going to be looking for and what you're going to be doing for the customer, with their annuities, understanding the annuity in a little bit, but really just if you're interested in it, jump in with both feet. Don't hold back. Go out there, look for the business. It's out there. I mean, we all see it every day. We just don't ask for it.
Right.
You go into these houses going specifically for a final expense. I mean, you have the paperwork in hand. You know what you're looking for as far as the final expense and how to pitch that product. But asking for the other product is what I think we kind of miss in the aspect that we're looking for. So.
Right. Yeah. I think the main takeaway from Jeremy there is it's all about mentorship, and kind of curious. Same thing with you, Steve. What's your thoughts on a guy that's interested in doing this? What would you suggest he needs to do annuity sales to his leads the correct way?
I would say the way I learned the business, I went through some rough periods, but I learned from experienced agents, and I went out into the field with them and I watched how they worked. I learned the questions to ask. I learned how to take control of a situation. If you've got somebody that has an insurance policy, have you had a policy review in the last 6 months? Could I do that for you? There's an opportunity. There's a situation when you're being left at the door to you're being invited in the door. There's all kinds of ways to ask and be helpful, and that's what I like to teach people. Jeremy has the gift of enthusiasm, and I'm hoping that if anybody works with me, that they have a good case, and I'll let them know quickly if they have something, and if they do, we'll move forward as quickly as possible. I do not like to wait around. The only thing that slowed Jeremy and I down was getting the back end process, getting everybody appointed and working that. Otherwise, we would have been ready to go within a week or two of him finding the business. So, if anybody's sitting on the fence waiting to jump in, we're ready, and we invite you in to do that.
Right, and I think I'm kind of curious as a follow-up question, Steve. You mentioned a question you ask your prospects. Have you talked to your agent within the past 6 months, 12 months? And I think that's a great question. I'm just wanted you to dive into this to explain why there's so much opportunity. I mean, I think personally, we all know that the failure rate for insurance agents is approaching, if not above 90% within the first year. And a lot of these people, even in the annuity business, I would imagine, they've got an agent, they write a deal, here today, gone tomorrow. And a lot of these people don't get service. A lot of these people don't get help, the follow-up that they need to make sure that their money is managed the best that they can. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's why there's so much opportunity, or do you think there's other reasons as well?
I think if you're a capable agent, you're personable, you can talk to people, you're comfortable doing the process. If you fail out of this business, it's lack of mentorship. It's lack of knowledge. And one of the reasons that I worked with Dave is I watched him on YouTube. I liked the way he worked. He always worked with good character. I said, there's a fellow that I can work with. And when he gave me the opportunity, apparently I come through the phone the same way. I think that's the key. Find somebody that you can put in your corner that'll give you the right guidance and give you the ammunition and the tools. We have a toolbox here, and we're just putting another tool in the toolbox. And the more effective you are out in the field, the better you are. There's little questions that old school insurance agents do, and that's great. I've already got an insurance policy. That's great. When was the last time you had a policy review? I've already got health insurance. That's great. Can you take it up a notch? Do you have this or that? There's always an opportunity to be of service. And if you're looking for it, if you've got the lighthouse looking back and forth as to all the opportunities, you'll find it. It's sitting there.
Perfect. So Jeremy, to bring you back in on this, we've just mostly talked about annuities, but with this approach, there also is an opportunity for other products as well. So just to kind of ask you, what other product lines have you become aware of through this annuity process that you could possibly help your clients with?
Well, as far as the product lines, I mean, when you're asking all of the questions, essentially doing a needs analysis on these customers, you're going to start looking at all sorts of different products for them that they're looking for. That's the most important thing. They're looking for this information or how to get help as far as setting themselves up for retirement and for success. But I mean, we go in there for the leads that I'm getting are specifically, for final expense, but there's a lot of other business that we can look at and we can write inside those houses. But one of the big things, I mean, yes, the annuities I'm looking for at this point in time, single premium pays, life insurance policies, definitely taking a look at that and reviewing pretty much everything that they have in their portfolio. One of the other things that I'm probably going to be taking a look at here in the future is, is obviously looking at the healthcare aspect, or what do I want to say, Dave?
Medicare.
You can edit this.
Medicare.
The Medicare. Yeah,
You don't want to. You don't
Medicare
want to sell a healthcare these days. There's like $0 in it. Maybe that'll change in a couple.
Right.
But Medicare is great still.
Right, but going in there and looking for Medicare opportunities as well. So.
Well, very good. So, kind of as we're winding down here, what is your outlook, Jeremy, moving forward when it comes to the annuity deals? Not to mention the other ones we just discussed. But what is your outlook as far as how many annuity deals do you think you'll be writing a month? What's your outlook on finding this stuff? Do you think this is something that will add a measurable amount to your bottom line? And do you see a long-term opportunity in doing this?
Well, there's absolutely a long-term opportunity in doing this. I mean, people are retiring every single day. There's 401ks that need to be rolled over or need to be taken a look at. The guy that I moved to $68,000, he's 53 years old, guys. He's not old.
A young man.
But he's still a young man. And he's contributing to his 401k. So it's something that we're going to review every year or every 2 years to actually look to see how much money he's got in his 401k, to where we can take that back out and actually protect that money again. So it's something that's an ongoing thing, especially when people are younger. But, taking a look at what it is, I mean, I'm looking right now, I'm probably going to be writing 4 annuities a month, if that be the case. I know that's an ambitious number, but they're out there and I'm finding them quicker than I know what to do with. And, and if you're working with somebody else, out there as far as, another agent or something like that, if you want to learn the aspect and you guys split the commission, it's money in your pocket, guys. There's other ways to look at it as far as helping you guys out. So, but there's a lot of opportunity out there for the annuity end of it. I mean, you're going to find it out there a lot, as long as you ask the right questions.
That's what it always comes down to. As I do in my videos, I talk about the power of the questions you ask will determine the outcome of the sales you make. So same kind of question to you, Steve, to kind of wrap this up. What's your outlook on the opportunity for this style of approach or this business when it comes to working with seniors and writing annuities? Do you think it's something that is a long-term career opportunity?
Well, it is for me. I'm really excited about working with new agents that want to try this out. I'm 61 years old, and I kind of like to hang around the house and take the dog for a walk. And working with Jeremy over the phone, not jumping in the car, I am excited about that opportunity. The other thing is Jeremy just touched base on it. There's all types of different ways with annuity that when you find one that's really substantial, that there's more money to be made. I'll give you an example. A lot of these people, Jeremy's working with a lady. I'm going to use a client that he has that has substantial assets. Most of it's under management with a financial planner. But I said, let's look at what's available. And there's an IRA sitting there that nobody's paying attention to. And if we roll that over, then she's going to have what's called a required mandatory distribution once a year. She's not going to need that money. She's got too much money as it is. So Jeremy's going to go back and do an annual premium on an insurance policy with that money. And that could be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 every year that he's going to make a nice commission on that as well. So there's lots of different opportunities when you look at helping people out with their estates and maximizing their legacy that an agent can make a good living at.
And I think the important point to take away from this, guys, is that we're not the only ones that are offering some kind of annuity a setup to help agents out. But I think the important difference in how we're different is that most of the other guys out there know product. They know all about the details of how their product works. But what they lack in doing, and really what matters in making this business successful, is how to implement the product knowledge to actually putting it inside the sales process. How, like Steve said earlier, what you actually say to open up these opportunities, what questions you ask, how to position yourself against maybe the incumbent annuity, or why it's a good idea to roll over a 401k. A lot of these setups will just want to give you a contract, but it's just not enough on a contract basis to do a good job. You need somebody who can coach you, who can mentor you, who can be accessible, because that's really what it's going to take to turn this idea of writing annuities on final expense leads and then turning that into an actual business model that's scalable, that's predictable, and makes you a lot of money. That's how I operate my final expense business. There's a lot of organizations that do the same thing. They pump a contract and never pick up the phone again. We're the exact opposite. Okay, Steve's the exact opposite. He's going to answer your phone calls. He's going to help you through this process. And all these details, if you're hearing 401k rollover, you're hearing all these kind of distribution things, and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to even begin with something like this. Don't worry. You know, these are all things you will learn through the process of immersion and experience. And it will become second nature as you get invested in the learning process by finding people that actually have a need that you can help them with. And again, that's why it's so important to work with a mentor, because they're going to guide you in the right direction. So you're going to get results on a much higher odds basis than just trying to do it alone. So as we wrap up here, I want to hand this over to Steve to more or less kind of direct the people that have a serious level of intrigue in this. Again, this is a video that's meant for my entire viewing audience, whether you work with me on the final expense side or not. This opportunity to work with Steve is what we're giving you guys. And what I'd like Steve to do is just describe the next steps he would suggest for you out there, maybe if you're interested in this, to take in order to begin the process of learning to do what Jeremy has done.
Well, first, thank you, David. Thank you for this opportunity. If you're a new agent, I'm going to give you one tool to put in your toolbox if you're out in the field. And it's a very simple question that you ask the client. If you ever get to the topic of an IRA or a 401k, ask this question. Do you receive a monthly, quarterly, or yearly statement? That'll tell you an awful lot about it. And if they give you that information, ask this question. Could I take a look at it? If you get a positive response to those two questions, call me, because you've got business. You've got somebody that doesn't understand something and wants to learn something. The next step is, how do we get started? If this sounds interesting to you, I want to talk to you. Dave is a good funnel, but primarily what I want to do is to get you excited about this opportunity, to know that there's somebody in your corner that'll work with you. The work that I did with Jeremy, I'm willing to do with any agent that wants to learn this skill. And so if you contact David, if David thinks that you're to the level that this would be something that would be a benefit to you, whether you've got something in line or not, I'd like to talk to you and get things started. I love the networking. I love the fact that we work together. It's lonely out there in the car. If I'm driving, I'm available. And a lot of the times I'm on I-95 going up and down between appointments. I love talking to agents. So give us the opportunity to work together, and I'll be glad to be in your corner.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. Again, if you're interested in reaching out and you want to pursue this approach to business, it's very easy to get in contact with me. Go down to the description box in this video and then click on the link that will lead you to my webpage. Otherwise, you could just go there directly. It's feagentmentor.com/contact. And just send me a message in that submission form. You'll see a body copy where you can describe, hey, listen to your interview, very interested in implementing this too. And then I will connect you with Steve. And then you guys can begin to talk and potentially, hopefully, formulate the same awesome results that Jeremy was able to do in literally weeks' time. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is David Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor, where I help agents like you succeed in the insurance business. And to both Jeremy and Steve, thank you guys so much for taking time to do this useful interview. And I know a lot of people are going to appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of the day.